What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress. It's Ben here with Adam. And on this week's episode, it's for anyone who feels like they're spinning their wheels. If you've been busy, you've been working hard, but deep down, you don't feel like you're really moving forward. Well, we've been there too. It's not that you're lazy, it's not that you don't care. The truth, most people just haven't been taught how to create progress on demand. That's why today we're sharing a 5-part framework that Adam and I created that's called GRITS. Now, once you understand this, progress becomes repeatable and staying stuck becomes optional. But before we do, let's check in with my co host Adam and see how this past week has been while I've been enjoying the end of summer with my kids out in California and Tulsa, Oklahoma.
What is going on? Welcome back to the show, my man.
Oh, great to be back. It's been, I was away for a couple of weeks and then back in town and then back out of town. So
Yeah,
thank you for
making the
having me
most of
back.
it.
That's right. Last
It's
week,
great.
school starts here in a couple of days, next Monday.
Yeah, and for our audience, we were chatting offline before this episode started. Ben also is coaching the cross country team at Wheat Ridge High School, and that started up this week as well, the week before classes start. So that's, I'm sure, kind of a quick, abrupt change to everybody's lifestyle. It's definitely a lot of time and energy you put into that. So I know the team really appreciates that, but pretty cool, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's always so remarkable how quickly summer goes by. I always say that July 4th is the halfway point, but once you hit the 4th of July, then at that point it just flies by. And here we are going into another school year, cross country starting. Both my kids are going to be sophomores. So excited, but it's also a little bittersweet. I mean, there's really only a couple years here before they turn into adults. So it goes by quick.
Wow. Well, you guys, as Ben said, we're going to be sharing this 5-part framework that we've developed, and it's always helpful to remember, different types of frameworks, just different, things that we're sharing with our audience. It's helpful to have an acronym or some way to memorize it and remember it a little bit easier. So, you think a lot of times about with people that are working hard and trying to build up that momentum. You have to have that grit. Well, we're basically doing that with this one, except it's grits. So no, we're not talking about that food at Cracker Barrel that nobody wants to eat. We're talking about grit, baby. And I'm going to just kind of kick us off with the first of the 5 parts of this framework. So again, this is GRITS, G.R.I.T.S. So for G, it's all about gauging what matters. So G is for gauging what matters. And what I mean by this is it's really important to have clarity. And the best way to get clarity is through measurement. There's this quote that I always like to use when talking about, KPIs, different ways to track your progress, and basically just always understanding that if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And this is a really good example of that. So I think the thing that we want to kind of talk through on this first of 5 with the G, with grit and gauging what matters, is just understanding that you really can't improve what you don't measure. And so many people today, they really just feel stuck because they're grinding all day, but they have no idea if it's actually moving the needle. And I've definitely been here before. I've had a few team members over the years that have also, talked through this with me and just the challenges they've had that we've kind of worked through together. And, this one team member I had, they were tracking their daily calls, appointments, even just the different closings that they had in a notebook. And, even before we had these dashboards, they were already just doing this kind of the old school way, just with pen and paper. And I thought that was, just really kind of inspiring to see at such a basic level, you can still, track this type of stuff. You don't need some fancy ticker or some sort of an app on your phone. If you don't have that, or if you're just not sure the best way to measure something, I think to start off with something simple, just, piece of paper, figure out what it is though that's truly the most important, what really is moving the needle, and then having that be at least your North Star to begin with. And it's okay if over time that measurement, that KPI, that key performance measurement might change. That's no issue there. But the only thing I'll share, one last thing before passing it back to Ben, is really to create true momentum, real momentum, you're not going to know unless you're tracking it. So whether it be, working out, losing weight, whether it's, trying to take on a new hobby, or it doesn't have to be even, finance related. You can apply this to any type of thing that you're working on in your life just to get better. But the biggest thing, again, is just finding out what that one metric is, and then just being so diligent about tracking it, not just tracking it once in a while, every single day, or as often as you possibly can. The more, the better. And whether you use that sticky note or a spreadsheet really doesn't matter. Just what matters the most is just keeping score, because clarity is what also creates confidence.
Yeah, and I think that's so important as far as gauging what matters, because it allows you to understand and identify where to put your energy into, who to put your energy into. One thing that I will always remember when I came on board as a full-time loan officer in 2017, my mentor and branch manager at the time, his name was Brian. He gauged and tracked every single phone call from every single referral source. And I remember seeing his spreadsheet for the first time, and I was like, you're doing this? Every single call that comes in, you are documenting every lead that comes in. And so that really changed my perspective, and it showed me the importance of how important that is. And that's one thing that I think a lot about now. You have people that are kind of the solopreneurs, the solo real estate agents or solo loan officers, and they're kind of doing things the way that they've always been done. But when you look at those who are truly high producing, they have systems set up and they're monitoring and gauging all of this.
One thing I'll share really quick too is, I forgot exactly how the quote goes. Something like, small handles move big doors. You know what I'm talking about? You
I
heard that
like
before?
that. I like that.
I think there's a little bit more snazzy wording that they have for that, but it's that same idea of just understanding that it's not these massive changes. It's these tiny little tweaks
Yeah.
that really are what sets the best from the rest, just being able to get really deep into the details and just realizing that, kind of like our whole theme of our podcast, getting 1% better every day, just doing different forms of A/B testing, figuring out different ways to truly understand what that KPI, that key performance indicator is for whatever it is you're trying to achieve, and just making those very minor, minute adjustments.
And I think that takes grit to find all that stuff and discovery and not give up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that takes us to our second point in grit, which is R for real movement, not just motion. Real movement, not just motion. Busy doesn't always mean productive. You can spend 10 hours replying to emails, checking Slack, and putting out fires, and still go to bed like nothing actually moved forward. That's motion, not momentum. We call it rocking the horse. Tons of motion, zero forward progress. If you're not sure whether what you're doing actually matters, go back to what you're measuring. Are your results changing? Be brutally honest. Are you doing what's easiest or what's most effective? And I have to ask myself this question every day. And I know there are things that at times I am avoiding, or I'm not putting myself in those uncomfortable situations, or I'm not always making the calls and doing the things that I need to really, because it's easy to do other things. It's easy to um, be in motion rather than be productive. I can go make these 5 phone calls to prospects, or reach out about interest rates dropping, or I can do something that doesn't require me to get out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. I know we've talked about this a few times, but the power list, which is what Andy Frisella built out, we've talked about this on a few other podcasts, but just understanding that also along these same lines, as long as you identify what really is movement and what the things, the tasks, the daily tasks that are going to be creating that, once you've identified that, let's just say you have 5 that you know for a fact are really what's the most important, which these measurables are you're focused on. You could work really hard on all 5 of those and be done by noon and call it a day and not think anything bad of yourself, be content and know that you still really did achieve what you needed to for that day, despite it maybe only taking half the day, versus just like you were saying a minute ago, like checking emails, just kind of being busy, but not actually productive, going and having a lunch with different realtors or people, once or twice a week and spending 3 hours from door to door, doing things like that. Yeah, you're kind of working, but not really. I just think, really being honest with yourself, like you said, about just what's moving the needle, what's the most important, even if it's hard, and just having that be what you focus all your time and energy on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look for now that we're in the digital age, learning to leverage Technology. And that's one reason that I'm such a big fan of the webinars, because on these webinars, you can essentially meet with an individual. Typically, if you're meeting with a prospect, that could take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And on these home buying webinars, well, you can meet with 10 prospects, 15 prospects, and go over the same thing. So, same thing, you're just allowing your sphere and your net to get so much bigger and make such more of a efficient use of your time.
Yeah, it's never been easier in the history of our planet to achieve more with less work in a shorter period of time than there is right now, with all the
But you
tools
still
and
got
just
to get
things.
out of your comfort zone to do it.
Yep, absolutely.
You got to have grit,
You
which
got to
takes
have
us to
grit.
point number 3, which is what?
Yeah. So far we got GR. Now we got I. I
Grit.
stands for input from others. So alignment through feedback. So this one hurts. This is something that is definitely one of the fastest ways to grow, but can be definitely another thing that puts you out of your comfort zone. You know, a lot of people, myself included, don't like to, kind of get negative feedback. But, when it's coming from a good place, a place from somebody that you really respect and trust and admire, when they're giving you that criticism, that positive reinforcement to maybe achieve a little bit more, work a little bit better on certain things, you got to take that and run with it. You got to take that seriously. So, we all have these blind spots, and we rarely stop to ask people, hey, what do you see that I'm missing? And I think
Mhm.
having somebody like that in your life in whatever it is you're trying to achieve is really, really important. Most people definitely will not tell you the truth, even,
Yeah.
if you're alluding to wanting to hear it from them. Even if you ask them, a lot of people still, even at that point, they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So I think just really understanding, if you create space and you really let people know that you're open to real, honest feedback, you might hear exactly what you need to grow. And, I think the important thing here is just that this person that you might be asking for some of this feedback from doesn't have to be your mom or your best friend or your spouse or your significant other. I would just implore you guys to find somebody that is educated and can relate to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Because, if it's somebody that has no idea what you're even doing or working on, their feedback, their honest opinion might not really matter because they don't
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
where really the place you're coming from.
I think that's the most important. You don't want to ask just anyone for their opinion or for their critique. You want to go to the people who have what you want. So, who is that person or professional that is above you, already achieving those results? Go get their opinion. Show them what you're doing, what your daily habits are, what you're gauging, what you're measuring, and they'll be able to give you some really meaningful feedback. As you know, I am wrapping up Ray Dalio's book, How Countries Go Broke, and he'll share some insights as far as what led to his success. He's the biggest, or he manages or founded Bridgewater, which is the largest hedge fund company in the world. He has a net worth of 15 or 16 billion dollars. But one of his founding principles for his business is that uh, everyone gives unfiltered feedback based off of what they believe. So he does not want anyone to sugarcoat anything. He wants it to be raw and straightforward. And it's not about getting your feelings hurt. It's about, what do I need the information from you? You're on the team for a reason. You're on the team because you play a role. You are excellent at what you do. And I need to know what you think, what you believe. And he doesn't allow for anything other than raw, unfiltered feedback as part of his organization.
Love that. So find that person.
All right. So we got the grit. Now we're going to go to the grit. So, fourth point is the T. Tension is the path. Grit. Tension is the path. So, if something feels uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It might actually mean that you're finally doing it right. That is what we called productive discomfort. In the gym, it's progressive overload. In life, it's the same. If you're not feeling some stretch and some tension, you're really not growing. We've had people say, this feels really hard. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. But the truth is, it's supposed to feel hard. That's what makes it valuable. If it gives you anxiety, it's probably exactly what you're supposed to lean into.
Yep, I 100% agree with that one. I think the gym is a really good example where the only growth comes from stretching and even tearing the muscle fibers. So understanding that any growth comes from some level of challenge and resistance and getting to the point where you're uncomfortable, but you're also satisfied in that, or as you put, productive discomfort. I think that's a really good way to look at it. Just productive, but you're uncomfortable.
Yeah, I did a half marathon this past weekend, the Georgetown to Idaho Springs, and I wore a pair of new running shoes that I got for Father's Day back in June, some racing flats. And I was uncomfortable, let's say, right from the first mile. And this was one of the most challenging races that I've ever done. Even though I love the course, I love the outing, these shoes were just causing me tremendous pain and just discomfort the entire way. But I still kept going. I did have to stop a couple of different times to stretch my legs out, but it is very fulfilling when you face adversity, when you face that tension and you keep going. And ultimately, that is when you listen to some of these different influencers or individuals that have really achieved an incredible amount of success. I always look for clues in all the biographies that I read and some of the business podcasts that I watch. And one of them is grit. Sarah Blakely mentions that very, very, very often. But another one is that people that have this incredible success, they go through this adversity, and it's part of the process. When you go through this tension, it's a refining process. It allows you to develop and build the skills that you need. It allows you to become the person you need to be, that is capable of achieving these incredible results. And so without them, you would not be, without, if you didn't have the tension, you wouldn't be capable of becoming who you need to be. And so one of the big factors is that these individuals, they don't quit. They just keep going. And if you keep going, you cannot lose.
I think that's the icing on the cake right there. If you keep going, you can't lose. Just really understanding that.
And that's it.
I love that, man.
If you keep going, you cannot lose.
Well, that kind of ties in really nicely to the final of our 5-piece framework here, which is the S. So you have grit. Now it's time to eat, baby. Now it's time for grits. But on a quick note, before we talk about grits, do you like grits?
I've never had grits before.
Get out of here. Even in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Yeah, I've never had. Now, when I go into Starbucks, my Starbucks name is Bubba, which kind of has a Southern theme to it. But I've never had grits, though.
Yeah, they leave a little bit something to be desired after you finish. So I don't know if you need to rush out tonight and go get some, but just thought I would ask you guys. If you guys, by the way, any of you guys listening to the podcast, if you have just a love for grits, maybe you just have some unbelievable just passion for grits, leave a comment down below on if you guys are watching this on YouTube and let us know. Maybe I'm totally off on this. Maybe there's a way to eat these that actually taste good. So if so, I'd love to know that. But with that being said,
I love hash browns. Are they part of the hash brown family?
See, I wish you wouldn't have asked me that because I'm going to sound like a dummy because I don't even know what a grit actually is. It's a grain, but okay. I forgot what it's even coming from. It's not very good. It reminds me of like grape nuts. If you remember that cereal.
I do.
Yeah, it tastes like that. It's gross.
Okay.
All right, back to the sorry guys, back to it though here. Grits. So this is S, the final of our 5. And this stands for stack the reps. Consistency over intensity. And if you listen to us on a regular basis, you guys know this is a very common theme with a lot of the stuff we talk about, especially with self-improvement, growth, building momentum. You don't build muscle by working out once a week. You don't build a business or a better life with a once a week intensity burst either. Mm-hmm. It's about those daily consistent reps. Every time that I've personally made real progress, it wasn't from one huge sprint. It was really just from showing up every day consistently, even when I didn't feel it. And in fact, when you don't feel like it, those are the days that a lot of times you see the biggest amount of growth. Yeah. We all say it all the time, Saturday ends with day, Sunday ends with day. If you want uncommon results, do uncommon things daily. What I'm saying by this, guys, is just kind of a clever way to say that, just because it's the weekend doesn't mean that everything has to completely go off the rails. if you're really trying to lose a few pounds, maybe you're really focused on your health and your nutrition, you can eat like a, bodybuilder pro Monday through Friday. But if on Saturday and Sunday you're going to Wingstop and Jet's Pizza, and I'm saying these very specific restaurants because I've fallen into this category several times. I'm going to be honest with you guys, but that's when you fall off the wagon and you don't have that consistency. So stack those reps, even if it is on a weekend, even if it is on a day like Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, one of my challenges has always been I have always stayed up a little bit later on the weekends. Even if it's an hour or two, it's enough to then throw me off schedule when Sunday night comes back around, and then it takes me a couple of days to get back on schedule just so I can get back on and then get back off. And so there's this recurring loop where I'm going to bed on time and then I'm not going to bed on time. And now I got a new GPS watch for my birthday, and it really one of the benefits is that it really does a deep dive on your sleep hygiene. And so I'm learning to take this a lot more seriously. It gives me a score every time I get up in the morning as far as how I slept, monitors my heart rate. And I've realized that, I can do a much better job in this area. And but just kind of going back, when you talk to folks, Warren Buffett, for example, he's an investor, and he built his fortune not in a year, not in a decade, but over 90 years just by being consistent. And when you can learn the habits of whatever it is, investing, going to the gym, a lot of it is just around consistency, just being consistent. My girlfriend, Grace, she had not run longer than 3 miles her entire life. And she decided back in May that she wanted to run a half marathon. And so we put a 12-week training program together for her where she was running every single day. She started with a mile and built up to 10 miles before the half marathon. And she just completed her first half marathon this past weekend. So from someone who's never run before to all of a sudden running a half marathon in a 3-month period, the reason she was able to do that is because of the consistency in her training.
It's awesome.
And a lot of it is just learning to start small. The mistake that I see people make is that they try and do too much too fast, and then they get burnt out or they get injured, or they want to do it less frequently but more intensely, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, the people that haven't gone to the gym in 6 months and then just go absolute ham bone, balls to the wall for 2 or 3 days. They're so dang sore after that then they take another week off and they're right back to where they started, regardless of how intense of a workout they had for those couple days.
That's the norm, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think out of all 5 of these, they all have their unique kind of, purpose and value to all of them. But I think that's the one that hits closest home for me, is just that consistency over intensity. And, almost any field, any, business, any types, anywhere in life where people are trying to get better. I'd say that, like you said with Warren Buffett, that is the one thing that is so consistently common, is just this about consistency over intensity.
Yeah. Consistency is greater than intensity. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. These are our final thoughts. So if you felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like your effort isn't paying off, here's what to remember. Gauge what matters. Track it daily. Focus on real movement, not just motion. Get input from people who can tell you the truth. Lean into tension, because that's where the real growth lives. And stack your reps, because consistency, as you just said, Adam, beats intensity every single time.
Yep. You don't need that, another Monday reset or a perfect plan. You need grits, baby. It's how we've built progress in our own lives. And I guarantee it, we can definitely feel confident in telling you that it's going to help you build yours as well. So if this episode hit you guys close to home, if this one's just really resonating with you, share it with a friend, maybe a teammate at work, really just anybody who's been spinning their wheels. As always, we have new released episodes every single Friday on Spotify, Apple, and our video version on YouTube. So really excited just to continue to grow this podcast with y'all. And if you have any ideas for future episodes you think you guys would get some value from, we'd love to talk about that with you as well. So feel free to shoot either of us a direct message on social media. And just like we were talking about in this episode, if you have any feedback, any ways that you think we could do a little bit better, we'd love the opportunity to get that positive, constructive criticism and take action and lead by what we're talking about today.
And I was going to add, if you also happen to know anyone that loves grits, because Adam said that he is not a fan of grits, we'd love to hear from them. And why? Why do you love grits? Go ahead and tell us.
Tell us, baby. All right, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Have a positive and productive next few days. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to the Pursuit of Progress podcast.
The Pursuit of Progress podcast.
Catch you guys next week.